and it still is morning. My body clock is a wee bit funny, but I'm delighted to be here, and particularly thank you to Diane for inviting myself and the QA Scotland to be here to present and share with you our experience of working in an enhancement-led approach over the last now 11 years. Last year was a big year for us. It was 10 years of the themes, and any excuse for a party in Scotland, we go for it, and we absolutely had a wonderful year last year. So my presentation is really about what I'm going to specifically focus on is in the thematic approach and the enhancement themes. And I like to, from the outset, share with you this nice title, which is about creating a creative approach to a diverse sector. And that although we've got a small sector, we actually do have a diverse sector, from some very new institutions to some very old institutions. So before I begin, really what I would like to do is set out to you what we'll cover over the next half an hour. And it's just to share some background and some scene setting, something around about our framework, so where the themes fit into the whole approach. And then what I'd like to do is to actually pick out one of those themes and share with you how that has come about, what the process looked like, and what some of the outcomes have looked like. And then to really have a little look at some of the conclusions and findings and some of the lessons that we've learned over the piece and are continuing to learn. Because one of the things that I hope that you will hear from me and my experience and our experience from the Scottish sector is that neither Frank or I are coming here in any way, shape or form to say, just follow our lead, we've got it licked, because let me tell you, we're nowhere near that. We're continuing to take our own medicine in terms of enhancement, in that we're continuing to tweak, to change, to improve. We recognise there are areas that, me as head of enhancement sit down, head in hands and go, oh God, that didn't work. How can we make this better? And it's not just me sat in my office. I work across the whole of the sector with VPs learning and teaching, with practitioners across each of the institutions who I ask, how can we make this better? And in fact, we've got so good within the Scottish sector that I regularly take phone calls telling me, next time you need to do it like this. And that's an approach that I really truly believe in, because no one agency, no one body can make this happen, and that we all have to do it together. And that's what we're going to have a look at. Just in terms of a background, Scotland, geography is not my best subject, but I do know where Scotland is placed, and that is that very dark green bit at the top there of the UK. What I would really like to do is put a rain cloud over it, and that's not to say that this Scottish or Scotland in any way melancholy, but it's a meteorological statement on the country. And I was delighted to hear that I would be coming to South Africa in the summertime to see a blue sky, which I don't think I had seen for many months. And in fact, even in summertime, a blue sky can sometimes be hard to find in itself. So as you well know, as Ahmed had mentioned, that Scotland is going for independence, September the 18th, 2014. It's ingrained in our brains. It fills the airwaves, the newspapers continuously. We're actually here for a little break from that. But actually over the piece, Scotland has its own devolved parliament and has devolved powers for education, and has done for a number of years. But it also has had its own education system for a very long time, separate from an English system. And why I'm mentioning that is, I'll come to it later on in our slideshow, because, or my presentation, is because within Scottish HE, we're very aware that we're not sat in isolation, that we need to consider what's coming in from secondary education. And there's a change happening within secondary education within the Scottish sector. So we're very aware of that just now. We have 19 higher education institutions, just slightly smaller than your own system, and the undergraduate curriculum is based on a 4-year honours degree programme. Again, all of this would be fairly familiar to yourselves. And we have no undergraduate fees. The reason why upfront undergraduate fees, and the reason why that's there, of course, that you might well be familiar that in the English system you can pay upwards up to £9,000. So Scotland is quite rightly quite proud of that aspect. So the enhancement approach in Scotland is, well, of course, is an enhancement led, and as Diana pointed out in her presentation, we've taken a particular view of what enhancement means, and the words that are emboldened here talks about deliberate steps. So we do like to think that we would have a strategic approach, so we're not hoping that it's all going to work out, but we actually make deliberate steps to bring about improvement in the effectiveness of learning experience of students. So the students are at the centre of what we do, and I think that that nice comment that you made this morning, if we start with the students, where would we be as universities if we didn't have students? So if we start with them, what we're trying to do is to ensure that their experience whilst in our higher education institutions is as best as it can be, and that we deliver on throughputs and their experience whilst within our institutions. So it aims to enhance the student learning experience and encourage, actively encourage, and indeed set expectations that we have student engagement. Not just sat at the table to have a student representative there, but they're part of it, and we work in partnership with our student body. We have a strong emphasis on partnership. So as I said at the very beginning, no one body owns quality or quality enhancement within the sector. I've got a number of logos on the bottom here. We've got QA Scotland, who I represent. We also have the Scottish Funding Council. You want to work in collaboration with the people who pay the wanga, yeah? So our funding council, we work very closely with them. The Higher Education Academy is a pan-UK body working to develop learning and teaching in all institutions. And we have our National Union of Students, who we work very closely with, and of course our University Scotland, which is the representative body for all of the institutions. So the mainstay of the quality enhancement approach is this quality enhancement framework, which was developed or launched, let's say, in 2003, because like your own project, it took a couple of years for it actually to evolve. But the mainstay of it represented a commitment to move away from top-down compliance processes to participative and critical supported self-evaluation, so that every institution evaluated its own processes. Away from audit and towards improvement, similar to your own project just now. Away from ruffling the surfaces of HE practices and towards permeating the system. So an audit approach is very much a threshold approach, it's a tick box. Enhancement is really very much about, okay, this is our baseline, how do we improve it? So it was really trying to permeate into the system. And it was away from mechanistic models, these mechanistic, bureaucratic models that academics hate. Quality bods quite often love. If you're into your tick boxing, it's easy to do audit in many ways, it's very difficult to do enhancement. But what we're trying to do is develop a culture change and a quality culture, and that takes time. So what does the quality enhancement framework look like? As I say, it was developed in 2003. It attempted to move away from this audit approach towards an enhancement approach, and there are 5 elements, and very briefly, the first element is on institutional quality review. Institutions own quality. So institutions run their own institutional reviews. The second aspect, and they receive guidance from the Funding Council on that. The second aspect is the enhancement-led institutional review, which the Quality Assurance Agency in Scotland is responsible for, but it's a peer-led review. And it's conducted by a team consisting of 6 people, 3 from the UK, 1 international, and we've got an international reviewer in our midst today, Martin. And so Martin did a review in Scotland last year. We've got a student representative who's a full active member of the committee. And we've got a coordinator, so a secretary to the committee. So that's an enhancement-led approach, enhancement-led institutional review. It happens on a 4-yearly cycle, and it's very much about asking an institution, where are you now? So it's work on self-evaluation, self-reflection. Where are you now? Where do you want to be in the future? And what are the steps that you're putting in place in order to get there? And because the review system is peer review, the panel are there to support that institution in moving their strategy forward. The third aspect is this greater voice for student representatives, and we've got a particular group in Scotland that we're very proud of and we're very supportful of, which is SPARKS, and that's the Student Participation in Quality Scotland. It's a funded body, it's been in place since 2010, and their role is to support and develop students to be better involved and within quality processes, and help institutions to help engage students more closely within that system. And because SPARKS have been in place now for nearly 10 years, they've moved on quite considerably in that they're not so much directly involved in training students per se anymore, because actually it's been a generational effect, and that students are now training students to do it. So in effect, it's been a very successful element. The fourth bit is about improved public information about quality. So how do we as institutions demonstrate to our future, our prospective and current students, wider stakeholders, helicopter parents, what's happening within our institutions? Student feedback, graduate rates, employment statistics, and so on. So how is that presented to the wider community? And the final aspect is on the enhancement themes, which is my area, and if you bear with me, I would like to show a short 5-minute introduction video to the themes, which everyone fingers crossed.
The enhancement themes were introduced in 2003 with the aim of enhancing the student learning experience in the Scottish higher education sector. To do this, the themes looked for inter-institutional collaborations, a strong student voice helping to guide the themes, and an interest in international best practice. The themes are funded by the Scottish Funding Council and managed by the Quality Assurance Agency for Higher Education Scotland, QAA. They work in partnership with Student Participation in Quality Scotland, SPARKS, the Higher Education Academy, University Scotland, and NUS Scotland. Planning and direction of the themes is organised through the Scottish Higher Education Enhancement Committee, SHEEC. Most SHEEC members have institutional responsibility for learning and teaching, and every higher education institution has a member on the committee. Since they began, the themes have become an integral part of the Scottish higher education sector. They continue to have a positive impact and have achieved the remarkable feat of running for over 10 years. Several themes have now been completed, and their impact on the education sector is already apparent. A recent theme, Graduates of the 21st Century, has developed the idea of graduate attributes, allowing institutions to see what is vital and expected of a 21st century graduate, and from that, see how each institution can achieve this in their own unique way. The theme's growing influence and interest in what they have achieved is apparent at their annual conference, which has grown substantially in both attendance and in welcoming the international community to join in and collaborate on new themes.
A very warm welcome to this, the 6th annual Enhancement.
Welcome to the Edinburgh Conference Centre and to our 8th annual Enhancement Themes Conference.
The conference is Themes in Action and allows a public platform where professionals from all sectors and countries can explain their work and opinions on educational best practice. It is also where student representatives can directly address key stakeholders and voice their opinion.
We'll move on to perspectives from our student representatives.
Instead of just contributing to the conversation, we can choose the conversation that we want to have. And the truth is, it's not just Sam and I standing here today. Vast amounts of students from across Scotland are standing up here with us.
Scotland, whenever I'm working on learning and teaching at the European level, Scotland's always used as a pillar of being at the forefront of learning and teaching quality enhancement.
The student voice is essential to the enhancement themes, and that is why there is a very strong effort to work with the student population. Student representatives are members of the Theme Steering Committee, and student members sit on each institution's enhancement team. This and more guarantees that the student voice is heard and helps guide future themes.
Enhancement themes have given the students at my institution a vital link to influencing and shaping their curriculum that otherwise might not exist. The themes empower students by giving us a platform to talk about our learning experiences in an instructive way. Graduate attributes gave students the chance to shape their definition of a GCU graduate and the kind of qualities they should have, making it relevant and meaningful to them. What is more important than that?
The themes have always recognised the importance of international influence and so formed the Learning from International Practice projects. LFIP. The projects seek to inform learning and teaching practice in Scotland by looking at practice in other countries. Every new enhancement theme is created from the conclusions reached from previous themes. The organic growth and development of each theme means that previous conclusions are not just left behind, they are an integral part of the future of the enhancement themes. They ensure that they remain relevant and are in keeping with current practices and discussions.
This needs to run to the end, I'm afraid, I think. Yeah. Okay, so that was a brief introduction to you. It sounds a bit glitzy, as if we've got it all sorted. I know the pain behind all of that. I know all the people that were involved in it. But it gives you a general introduction to the enhancement themes and how they've worked over the last 10 years. So, okay. So I'd like to take some time to tease out some of the things that were introduced within that video. That video is available online if you want to watch it again, if you didn't get enough of it the first time round. So in terms of the oversight of the themes, yes, the QAA are involved with the themes. But what's most important to us is that we have this group known as SHEEC, which is the Scottish Higher Education Enhancement Committee. What a fantastic name for a committee. But this SHEEC group is made up of every vice principal learning and teaching from each of the institutions, and is chaired by Professor Andrea Nolan, up here on the right hand side, who's travelled the world with me on these slides. She's Vice Chancellor of Edinburgh Napier University, formerly of Glasgow University. And SHEEC have been in place since 2005. For the first 2 years, there was no chic. The themes were put upon us, let's say, by the funding council. The suggestion was that there was 2 themes a year, each year. The sector can't, academic communities can't work like that. It takes a year to get a committee together. So very quickly we realised, this isn't going to work. And in fact, what was more important to us was that if we're really serious about this, we have to work with all of the institutions. So she came into place in 2005 and put together a 5-year plan, which I will show you in a few minutes. But again, a 5-year plan in terms of the themes were set out at the start, that actually 5 years is quite a long time, isn't it? It's short in some ways, but long in other ways, because there's so much change within the sector. So in 2012, she came together and said, you know what, we've been established for this length of time, and if we're really serious about what we want to do, let's set out our strategy and our vision, because we really are strong in what we want to do, but we really need to publicly put it down somewhere. This is available on our website, and there's more detail in there, but really what I want to emphasize to you is that aim is to ensure that our higher education institutions work together to develop, foster and embed a culture of quality enhancement. So there's key words there. All the institutions, we've got senior level buy-in, all sat around together saying we want to work together to develop a quality culture through effective partnerships involving staff, students and other stakeholders. So this was a key element for us. There was a 5-year plan at the outset, a bit Maoist in some way, and you'll see that there was a number of themes starting off from the very beginning through employability, flexible delivery, assessment and so on. All areas that I'm sure in Scotland we could do again, and indeed these themes would be familiar to you if you wanted to do them. But it's just to give you an idea of the number of themes that have been in place. What I wanted to focus on was as graduates for the 21st century, and the video highlighted, just give you a brief intro to that. Again, this is Professor Philip Wynne. He was a chair, he was a VP Learning and Teaching at Strathclyde University at the time, and he chaired the enhancement theme on graduates for the 21st century. So Chic as a group decide what a theme will be. And one of Chic chairs the theme, so that we've got linkage between the two. Okay, so it began its work in 2010, chaired very ably by Professor Wynne, and really G21C aimed to integrate and consolidate aspects of all the themes so far. I'll let you into a little secret. In 2010, when we were scoping and we asked the sector, okay, what are the areas, what are the topics that you would like to focus on? The response was, oh, not more, there's too much. We're really struggling to keep up with all of the things that are happening. Can we take time out to really pull all these themes together and ask this key question, which is, what are we trying to achieve from higher education? What do we want? What are the graduate attributes that we want our students to have achieved from each of our own institutions? So if we start with that question, what is it we want to achieve? Then can we work back and see what do we need to put in place to have achieved that? The other little secret I'll let you into was that there was an expression at one time, does that mean that we're going to have tartan top graduate attributes? So tartan graduate attributes, absolutely not. And some of the attributes that I will share with you, and you saw in that video, no one institution can lay a claim to global citizenship or to critical thinking. And that really, if you look across each of the institutions, they're all very similar. But it's about the way in which the institutions embed and develop those attributes within their students. So we had a shift in the process. G21C for us was a real sea change in terms of the thematic approach. Up until this, we relied on the theme working in the background. I call it a tombstone approach. Theme set about its work, went off, had all the little working groups, and then produced the booklet or the outcomes at the end of the theme. But we very much moved towards pushing the emphasis out to the institutions. So there was a shift in emphasis to process, whereby the theme steering committee, separate to Chic, so Chic is up here, senior level buy-in, we've got a theme steering committee. Where we were not getting traction within institutions was at the middle management layer. So deans, whatever equivalent that might be within your institution, the gatekeepers, let's say. So we provided guidance that the theme would be made up of a middle management layer, and that unlike previous themes, this new G21 theme steering committee would have one representative of every institution. So it was reflecting the Chic. These were fundamental changes for us. Every institution behind that team member, we asked them to set up an enhancement team. And we gave that enhancement team a small amount of money to take forward the work we wanted them to conduct, on the absolute condition that that work be shared with other institutions. That makes it sound as if they were unwilling to share it. They absolutely were not. By this time they could see the benefit of it. But you know, there's work involved with it. And some people have termed it just oiling the wheels. We weren't giving a huge sum of money, but it was fundamental to the change in our thematic work. Every institutional team, in the institution we ask that they have at least one student member. So what we've been able to do is that we've been able to pull out 19 institution student members to form a student network, so that they can have their own discussion and activity in relation to the theme. And like yourselves, we had a sectoral symposium activity as well. What the real emphasis was in G21C was more about this sharing and learning, less about reporting, and more about coming out to play. So if we're asking institutions, what are the type of attributes you want your institution, you want students of your institutions to have achieved? Question one. Question two, how are you going to go about doing that? So each institution team were set about, they set up their own projects. It was up to them to do what was suitable to them culturally within their own institution. And then what we did was that at least once a year we pulled together these dating days. Sounds wonderful, doesn't it? But every team, institutional team, was invited to come together to an arena like this. We set up 19 tables. You had the opportunity to go to one table, hear 10 minutes of what's happening in Glasgow University, quick discussion, and work your way around the room. And it's very quick, very active. You're not going to get all the information on the day, but what it does allow you to do is make contacts, exchange phone numbers, emails, etc. So it was more about this sharing and learning. And these are some of the pictures from some of those days. And I think what was really important is that we let institutions go wherever they want. So we've got, up here, we've got representatives from Edinburgh University, from Glasgow University. Frank, you'll recognise one of your members of staff here. We've got students, we've got Edinburgh University. And right down in the bottom here, we've got a picture of a symposium we ran. We've got the Chief Scientific Officer and the former head of Rolls-Royce in Scotland, who came to talk about what it was, their vision was of a graduate of the 21st century was. So absolutely much more about sharing and learning. I'm going to flick this up quickly. Here are some of the strategies that institutions put in place to take forward the theme, and I'm going to highlight a couple to you. One of the most successful ones, I think, or possibly maybe one of the most used, was this bottom one over here in the pink, the seed corn projects and award schemes. We gave institutions a sum of money to use in whatever way they wished in order to take forward the theme. What many institutions have done is to use that funding to seed corn small projects. Every institution has members of their academic community working diligently within learning and teaching. What this did was this funding allowed those people to further their activity and then share it across their institution. And what we're increasingly seeing is that all institutions now have annual learning and teaching conferences where these type of activities are shared across the institution. And then what the enhancement themes and the QAA offer then is national activities, national conferences where people can come out and share with others across the sector activities that have been ongoing within their institution. The other one at the bottom that I like to pick out as well is looking over the fence. That's one thing that we're very good at in Scotland, being a small country. We always like to look over to see what other countries are doing, bringing in international colleagues, bringing in colleagues indeed from south of the border in England to come up and tell us what they're doing within their institutions and so on. The reciprocal effect of that is that we're building up brilliant networks, fantastic networks. So it's not just about bringing them in at a sectoral level, because quite often we've had people, you know, for example, Simon Barry from University of Sydney has come over, presented at conferences, and individual institutions have approached Simon. He's done workshops with them. We ask institutions to open it up to other institutions and so on. So we're spreading and snowballing knowledge as we go along. So, just the last couple of slides to finish up. Has it been a successful theme, G21C? It finished in 2013, end of 2012. Of course I'm going to say yes, aren't I? If I said no, I would be out of a job. But where I can see evidence of it is that we've got evidence of engagement and interest across the sector. Why would you not be interested in developing graduates for the 21st century? But we see it in our enhancement-led institutional review reports that I didn't add at the start, which was that when review teams go into institutions, they ask institutions, how are you engaging with the themes? And you would not now hear of any institution who said, no, we don't bother with them at all. Every institution now is demonstrating not just a list of attributes, but actually how they're embedding and shaping a student experience to ensure these attributes are developed, and that students are aware and can articulate these attributes. They also now feature in many prospectuses and programme designs, which was one element of that prior slide, is that they're being embedded into policy and strategy. And graduate attributes is now a term that's widely used. We've already heard it already in the presentations prior to this one. I'm going to skip over that. I think what's important for us to realise is that we're part of a learning continuum. And I mentioned at the start this notion of Scotland having a new education system, and it's got a great name called Curriculum for Excellence. Why would you not strive for anything else other than excellence within a curriculum? But what this Curriculum for Excellence, which is 3 to 18, so it's the full span, the first students who will come out of that curriculum will enter higher education in 2015. But the 4 capacities that the curriculum is saying that it will develop is about being I always have to look because I can never remember them, successful learner, a confident individual, a responsible citizen, and an effective contributor. Why would you not want these capacities from a higher education system? So if we're receiving these students into higher education, in theory, we're going to get a different breed of student. So we're going to get a student who is come through a curriculum method that is more aligned upon independent learning, more aligned on critical thinking, team working, interdisciplinarity. So turning up at our doors in 2015, if they come with that experience, is our curriculum matching that experience? So these are questions that we're actively considering ourselves within the higher education system in Scotland. So, winding up, are the themes worth it? I quite often ask myself this. I think where they are worth it is that they identify sector-wide strategic needs. So individually, we all have our own challenges, but collectively, quite often, they're pretty similar. So can we work together in terms of overcoming these issues? They're absolutely sector-led and owned. The agency, Quality Assurance Agency, are there to facilitate, to manage, to help it work. It engages the academic community at all levels. We've got senior level buy-in with Chic, middle layer with the themes, we've got students, we've got practitioners demonstrating and sharing practice. We share national and international practice, and we're absolutely about supporting management of change and creating a quality culture, which never stops. Some final things to remember: they're not a panacea, they're not going to cure anything. But what it does, it allows a period of time to shine a light on an area so that collectively we can come together to share experience and to share knowledge. They're absolutely time and resource limited. We could spend 10 years looking at assessment, but we have to be very tight on what we're going to actually particularly look at. And of course, they're resource limited. But it allows this time to reflect and share together. And our evaluation does show that it's working. So absolutely finishing up, you do need that high-level buy-in. If you don't have high-level buy-in, we won't move it on. So that's where your Chic or equivalent, your DVC's learning and teaching, from which I'm hearing from colleagues here today, you've got that buy-in, which is fantastic. But you need to influence that middle layer. And we still, I'm not saying struggle with it, but we constantly have our eye on it to make sure that we're influencing that group. You don't need a huge amount of resource. You've got the resource, you've got the knowledge, you've got the experience. I don't mean it's a financial resource that I'm talking about here. You do need building relationships, and you do need to build trust amongst each other and amongst each other across a sector. Don't do too much too soon. Yeah, we're tempted to kind of, solve it, move on, but, it's taking it steady. Broad themes work, so I like the approach that you've adopted, so that it allows institutions to make it fit to their own area. And it takes time, absolute time, which I'm gone over. Just to point you to our website, everything that we do, we share across the sector, and that means we share across the world. If you really want to know what's happening within the themes, sign up for our newsletter. You'll find out all kinds of things that you never thought you needed to know about the enhancement themes in Scotland, but it's a pretty good way to work it out. Just to finish up with, I do want to put a plug for our International Themes Enhancement Conference. Our second conference is going to happen in June 2015, and I would be delighted to see some of you there. So, thank you.